Thanks for checking out my video. If you want to learn more from me, I have a lot of classes on Udemy. You can find the links to a lot of those in the description. Okay, so as long as my cat doesn't walk over the laptop, we're good. But this is going to be a video on power words and names of power and things like that, and how they work and why they work. So, there's a lot of different faiths out there, and one of the things that the immediate one that you can jump to is Christianity. So, there's a lot of times where you hear about different things, even in movies and other things like that, where, there's a problem going on, or there's a bump in the night or haunting or whatever, and they say something like, in the name of Jesus, I command you to leave, something like that. And then you have us practitioners of other arts where we can call on different names of power, like when you invoke the different watchtowers, when you're casting a circle, or if you work with the Simon Necronomicon, you call on the different names of different spirits, from Enki to Marduk to Inanna and Anu, and I don't particularly like Enlil. Maybe I'll get to that in a future video and whatnot, because Enlil is Yahweh, and he's a bad guy. But anyways, so one of the things that kind of got me to work on this particular topic is because I am rereading, probably for the third time, It from Stephen King. And if you haven't read it, do that. I have two copies of the dang book and the audiobook. I'm about three-fourths of the way through the audiobook, which is about 44 hours long. It's great. But anyways, so why is it that, you would think that certain words of power would only work if the spiritual system is legitimate, right? Because if I'm calling on the name of Jesus, right, then he would come in because I'm invoking him, and he would help me to banish the nastiness in my house or whatever. And this is, particularly prevalent with like exorcisms and different things like that. Now, there are exorcisms in every single religious thing out there, whether it's Christianity, Islam, even Judaism, and other cultures, they do all have forms of exorcism. So why is it that they all work, right? So, well, mainly it is the energy and the belief behind the particular practitioner that makes that kind of thing work. And this is where you kind of can think of it in more of a chaos magic kind of model, where even if you were to create a system, like I could probably spend enough time and create a spiritual system around The Legend of Zelda. I probably could. Probably wouldn't, be received too well or whatever, because you get a bunch of people that would say that, it's fictional and it's fake and whatever. So is H.P. Lovecraft, but that's why there's people that practice the H.P. Lovecraft stuff and invoke Cthulhu, and chaos magic-wise, that works. So there you have it. Most people would give more credence to different spiritual systems of gods that have been venerated for a really, really long time, and arguably that's why the Simon Necronomicon works, but that kind of leads into another talking point. So let me just kind of get to my notes here. So like names like God and Jesus work in calling powerful energy for banishings and such things. So it's our belief behind them. It's the emotion that we put behind them. It's the authority that we put behind it. If I invoke name X, then I am calling on this authority that I believe in, which then brings up that kind of energy and authority within myself, because we channel that kind of thing. From a psychological model, you can think of it as calling up those particular qualities and aspects of yourself as like an archetype of authority that then brings up a certain kind of energetic model, energy signature of get the hell out or do as I command, right? So one example that you can think of from It, if you've ever read it, when one of the characters, Stanley Uris, was a kid, and it tries to terrorize each of the seven in the Losers Club. And when Stanley is bothered by it, I can't remember the manifestation that it takes in that particular scene. I listened to it yesterday while I was at work. But he's a bird watcher. He has a book filled with bird names. And for some reason, he starts, in which he doesn't even know, he feels called to do this kind of thing. He's pushed to do this kind of thing. he starts calling out the names of different birds in a very, very heightened, very powerful emotional state. I mean, he's yelling them at the top of his lungs as if they were commands, as if they're saying the same thing in the Simon Necronomicon tradition of like bara bara e dinazu, which means be gone, go to the desert, or the Latin exorcism prayer. You're saying that kind of stuff with powerful emotion, and you are putting oomph behind it, and then your desire and meaning behind it, because I could rattle off a bunch of light language jazz or gibberish, but if I have that emotional oomph behind it of what I want it to convey, and then I am conveying this oomph of power, regardless of what words are coming out of my mouth. It's that energetic attachment behind it that then creates the push. If you have to push a big rock, you can push it with your hands or you can push it with a machine. Either way, you're getting the job done. So he takes the bird names and he starts calling them out and whatnot, and it's actually causing it pain and frustration, and then it goes away. The same thing with Eddie Kasprak in It, where he comes up with the idea and the belief that his aspirator, which is really filled with camphor and salt and water, so it's really a placebo. It's not really asthma medicine, but that's because his mom has Munchausen syndrome, where he forms the belief that it is like acid or battery acid, and by forming that belief, when he uses it on it takes that effect. So, and I know it is fiction and whatnot, but it's a great allegorical vehicle for this. The belief behind the action of what they are doing then energetically transforms the words that they're using, and even in Eddie's case, the object that he's using, in order to make it powerful. Same thing when Richie and Bill encounter it in the basement of 29 Niebald Street, where Richie has this sneeze powder, and you would think an all-powerful being like it isn't going to be affected by sneeze powder, but their belief behind it and whatnot makes it sneeze a storm and confuses and confuddles him, right? So it's the belief behind what we do and what we have. Now, when it comes to different traditions like Christianity, Islam and Judaism, and like the Simon Necronomicon, for example, you're also tapping into the collective unconscious. The amount of people that throw in their energy to the belief of a Jesus or a God or a Yahweh or an Allah or any of the 50 names of Marduk or any of the entities in any religious system, the amount of people that put the energy into that particular belief. So when you're calling on a word of power, you are also calling on the idea that of all those other people and all the energy from all those other people that have done the same thing. You're tapping into all of that energy. It's almost like the Avatar in Avatar The Last Airbender, where when he's in the Avatar state, it's all the power from all the past avatars. When you're calling on a word of power, you're tapping into all of that oomph from every other person that has used that word of power. It's like buzzwords that the media uses, right? And I can't say a lot of them here because YouTube, but think of how many words can get really, really activated when you say them and everybody has an emotional charge to it. Same kind of thing. You're building that emotional charge with a particular word. So, you could rattle off a prayer and you're just reading it off of the book, blah, 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 and it's not going to mean anything. It's not going to do anything. That's why when, you could read the same kind of exorcism prayer and a demon's going to sit there and laugh at you. You got no effect on me. What the hell? Whatever. But somebody who has a lot of experience and spiritually tapped in, and they use that emotional energy of thinking, this is what I want to have happen when I say this particular thing. That's the gas in the car, and the collective unconscious gas in the car from everyone else that has said and done the same exact thing over and over and over. So regardless of the spiritual system that you use, think of the fact that you're not just doing this alone. You're tapping into the same energy that everyone else has tapped into it before. So you're using that extra gas in that gas tank. When you're going through like the gate walking system and you're doing the invocations for the gates, you're tapping into the same energy of everyone else that has done it with all the beliefs and stuff. You're tapping into all the people from way back in the day, the Arshipi priests, who did the same kind of invocations and whatnot from like the Maklu text, and even the invocations of the different gates, or reading the Descent of Ishtar, the Descent of Inanna, things like that. So you're tapping into that collective unconscious. So power words, regardless whether it's Yeshua, when you do the Yeshua cross with the flaming thing to do some banishments, or the Bara Edinazu, or even the exorcism prayer that's spoken in supernatural, Exorcis amus te, omnus immunus spiritus, all that, blah, 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 blah. I never memorized that entire thing, because I didn't really need to, because it's not entirely a spiritual system, but you get the point. The more oomph that you put into this kind of stuff from your belief and the energetics when you're tapping into the collective unconscious stuff is what makes power words work. So you can't really tap into the collective unconscious of the power of those phrases if you're just reading them and you are just going through them rote, like a teacher reading a lecture monotone, like a math teacher I had back in high school. There's no oomph there, man. You ever have a dynamic teacher that reads something with a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling and stuff? Same thing with audiobooks. You can have a really bland narrator, or you can have a great narrator that brings the story to life. Same thing when you are reading invocations, power words, all those kinds of things. So ingredients when you're doing any kind of thing with invocations, evocations, prayers, words of power, all that stuff, you got to understand what it means. You got to have an emotional oomph behind it based on what you want to have that particular phrase or power name or god or goddess or what have you help you with. And that allows you to tap into the collective unconscious and get that job done, right? So if you're doing like a house cleansing and you're just reciting a prayer monotone and whatnot, you're just reading it off the paper, bleh. Is that going to work? Not entirely. That's why it suggests that you memorize that kind of thing, because then once you memorize it, you're not in your logical mind anymore. You can tap into the other parts of your mind, and you can oomph it with more of an emotional charge, and that's when it becomes more effective. That's why, memorizing the Z Kia Kanpa, Z Anakanpa, Z Dinger Kia Kanpa, Z Dinger Anakanpa, hear me, O thou, name, come to me by the powers of the word, blah, and answer my urgent prayer, Z Kia Kanpa, Z Anakanpa. Memorizing that allows you to get the oomph behind it, especially if you understand what the Z, Kia Kanpa, Z, Anakanpa, and all that stuff means. You want to learn more about that, check out my classes and my books and all that kind of stuff. Link down below. Yeah. I came on and I wanted to make this video because I was going through a bunch of different things this morning with some topics and whatnot, and I thought this was a pretty good one. Let me know what you think about this one down in the comments. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and definitely check out my membership offerings, my Patreon offerings, my classes, my books, and all that good stuff. I'll see you next time.